this is called How to Succeed as a Media Buyer, but you have to first figure out what success means to you, right? There's no right path, as we've been discussing. And for me, I think, and I think this is true for a lot of people's careers. I mean, the first thing that you're needing to do is to make money to survive and pay the bills, right? And so success is really lumped into monetary success. And I think once you reach the point where you have enough money that you're comfortable and that it's not a top worry in your day to day, you start to realize that there's so much more to success and fulfillment that has nothing to do with that monetary part that we are so sold in society today, right? So I want to go into that a lot because you guys have spent, almost the last 4 months learning knowledge and developing a skill. And this is a skill that's in very high demand. I would honestly say that media buying, no matter where you are on the spectrum, even if you still feel like you're just starting, I promise you, you're in the top, 0.001% of people in terms of familiarity with these types of platforms and how they work and how to use them to grow businesses, right? Which is the real superpower here. I found some interesting stats. This one was fascinating, but global ad spend is set to grow 6%, which doesn't sound a lot, but that's a huge growth of like an industry. That's $656 billion. So compared to 2019, just a year's difference, businesses are going to spend 656 billion more dollars this year on paid traffic channels like Facebook, YouTube, and Google than they did in 2019. And as I said, this stuff is just getting started. Accenture also said that by 2021, global revenue from offline commerce channels will decrease by almost 20%. So this isn't a knock to any brick and mortars. I think there will always be a place for offline commerce, but you can't deny that consumers and the way we're operating as a society is moving more and more towards online commerce every year. So if more people are spending more time online, they're buying stuff online, then of course online advertising is going to continue to grow and be one of the most in-demand industries out there. And I think what's interesting that you look at what we do as digital advertisers, media buyers, whatever you want to call it, and you compare it to, maybe becoming a dentist or a doctor. There's a very specific plan and path that you have to walk to become a doctor, and certain education, and there are all these very specific things that you need to do that might take 5 to 10 years of your life before you're even able to practice. And so I'm reiterating the opportunity here because, guys, as a media buyer, I mean, they're not even teaching this stuff in university, really. Like, there's not even a formal way in a traditional sense to really gain this education or this knowledge, which we know that applying it, we'll talk about that here in a minute, that's a whole other part of this. But this is just so early, and there's going to continue to be such a demand for this. I just want to highlight that opportunity, and I think this can become very normal for us, and we can live in this day to day and forget to step back and just be grateful. Again, even if you're just starting, or if you're someone that's spent tens or hundreds of millions on the platform, I don't care. Just having that gratitude and realizing like, wow, we're living in a really cool time where we are able to learn this skill very quickly and without a lot of formalities, that it can have such an effect on the economy and such an effect on business, and therefore allows us to grow really quickly in our careers and our lives. And I think that's really cool. So I like to call this earning value. Media buyers, I would say I don't know if there's a list out there, but in terms of our ability to prove our worth to the bottom line of a business, right, to actually generate revenue, media buyers have to be one of the top current positions in terms of our earning value and being able to prove our worth necessarily when it comes to monetary things, being able to prove how we're able to grow businesses and really generate revenue. And I think that's pretty cool. And guys, I think my friend Sonia talks to me a lot about this, and I love the concept. And she says that, touching on this concept of money, because again, you could be doing this to make money, but there's got to be another reason too. And even if it's to acquire wealth and money just for freedom, right? And to be able to live the life you want, that is another really cool aspect of this job or this career path, that aren't really available for any other jobs, and that's the ability to apply this skill in a lot of different ways. Right, we'll talk about that in a minute, but you can be a business owner, you could take on clients, you could work for someone else, you could pick the vertical that you're really interested in. For, say for some reason you're specifically interested in a certain type of business, or if you love dogs and you want to rescue pets, I mean, you could use this skill to go deep into something that brings you a lot of pleasure and fulfillment, while also having that freedom that you want in your day to day. So, really think about your wealth as access to more freedom and being able to live your life the way you want. And media buying is a career path. It's not an identity, but it's a skill set that you can learn that cannot not only help you generate wealth, but also generate a lot of freedom in your life. Not just being able to work from wherever you want or being able to work the hours that you want, but being able to spend the time that you spend working, which we probably spend more time working than anything else over the course of our lives, having the freedom to um, do that in a way that feels good to you and a vertical that you're actually interested in. That's something that a lot of people can't say, and something that I'm definitely grateful for. And I just want to point out to you guys. So, in the beginning, if you're just getting started and you don't have clients, or you're looking for clients, you're figuring out if you should get a job, it's really all about building your value and your experience. Like, that's how you should think. Like, that's your currency. Obviously, you have to pay the bills. For me, it was bartending, side jobs. I don't know where you are in your life. Maybe, you already have money and you're just acquiring this new skill to build new businesses. But keep in mind that in the beginning, it's not about how high of a salary you can negotiate in your job, or how many clients you can bring on right out of the gate, and money in your pocket. When you're just getting started and you haven't yet applied a lot of these principles, your currency is really experience, because that is the after state that you're selling or that you're going for as a media buyer, whether you're running your own business, maybe a e-commerce business, whether you have an agency and you have clients, however you are applying this skill set, your experience is going to be the validation that other people that you are working with need to know that you have been able to achieve this after state before in other scenarios. Like, whenever I tell my story about working with digital marketer and how much money we spent and the success that we had and my journey, that is the experience and the validation that other people, whether it's you guys, my students, or particular clients, or consulting gigs, or if I'm doing an equity deal with a company, like, no matter what I'm doing, that past experience and showing that I have done this before with success is the currency I need to sort of get what I want. So I'm going to speak to both sides of the equation throughout this training. If you're more in the beginning, and if you're not, if you have the experience, but just keep in mind, especially if you're just getting started, your goals should be to acquire as much experience as possible, because that is your ticket forward, right? It's not all about, building a six-figure agency right out of the gate. You really want that that experience, because that's what's going to begin your path and show you sort of how you're going to move forward in this industry, I think is the best way to put it. So I really look at mastering this skill in sort of two steps, right? And sometimes it's a cycle. I'm always going between step one and two, but it's really simple. It's the learning, it's the knowledge, it's the taking courses, keeping up with blog posts, listening to podcasts, following any of Facebook's material that they release, staying up to date in Facebook groups, and just really staying in the know and learning and acquiring as much knowledge about this stuff as possible. But that always has to be balanced with application and experience, because that's really where you're going to learn your lessons that build the intuition that truly becomes your media buying skill set, right? Or that like media buying brain that you access. We think it's intuition, and maybe part of it is, but most of it is just all of the past experiences you've had and what those experiences tell you about the current situation that you're in, or about the current campaign that you're running. So you want to make sure, whether it's media buying or digital marketing or just business in general, that you're always balancing this learning and this acquisition of knowledge with application and experience, because those go hand in hand. And as I said, I find this to be a cycle, and I'm constantly flipping back between the two. I mean, heck, sometimes I'm doing both at the same time. Like this morning, I was setting up ads and flipping back and forth between one of my favorite blogs in the moment, and looking for some guidance with what I was doing. So sometimes they even happen at the same time. Um, but I want to go through some possible paths. So you may end up going down all of these paths. I think I've gone down all of them that I'm about to list or am about to. But I want you to remember that it's a journey, and that everyone's path as a media buyer or a digital marketer is going to look very different. And that's okay. The goal is to figure out how you want to feel, right? I think a big mistake that people make is they say, okay, what's my 5-year plan? And you imagine, what job you're going to have in 5 years, how much money you're going to make, what type of car you're going to have, what your house is going to look like. And you're thinking of these materialistic things versus how you want to feel. Do you want to feel fulfilled and successful and loved? And I find that when I think more about how I want to feel and the way I want to live my life, um, number one, I'm happier because that's what I'm concentrating on. And it allows all of the physical stuff to maybe look a little bit different than we would have thought 5 years ago. But you're okay with that. And that actually allows you so much freedom and momentum to move forward down the path you're actually supposed to be on, versus constantly chasing things that actually aren't going to make you happy. So I want to show you some different routes that you can go with the skill sets that you've acquired over the last 4 months. But remember that it's a journey, and there are lots of different entry points and ways around this. So the first is what I call an intrapreneur. And John, remind me, in underneath this video in the members area, I'm going to link to a few pages. It's a PDF of a little part of a book that I wrote, a part of a friend's book. And I wrote it while I was a digital marketer, and I was really wanting to coin the term intrapreneur. It's tough for me to say sometimes for some reason, because my mouth wants to say entrepreneur, but it's intrapreneur. And my experience as an entrepreneur, and how I think that more people, depending on where they are in their career path, should think about being entrepreneurs. And to me, this is a much better version of like an employee, right? Like an entrepreneur is someone that, yes, is working full time for someone else, but maybe you're working in more of a progressive, modern, like online type of business where there are opportunities for you to have equity in the company, or rev share, or just grow really quickly. It's not this huge Fortune 100, which I'm not knocking that. I have friends that use these skill sets and have gone to work for HP and are very happy doing that. But and that's a route that you can go to. But I think most of you are attracted to this industry because you want a quicker pace, you want your career to accelerate faster. And so that's really this entrepreneur idea that I'm chatting about. And I'll go deeper in to my story around this and how I think about it in that PDF that will pop in the members area. But, this was my route. As you guys know, I started as an intern, a digital marketer, became the VP of marketing. I'll talk more about that here in a minute. But I've really got my start and cut my teeth on this stuff working for someone else. And, it doesn't have the attraction that being an entrepreneur does in terms of the freedom and being able to, make more money more quickly and to have more control and to be in charge. I think the entrepreneur life is glorified in a lot of ways, and especially people that are new and are considering becoming an entrepreneur might only see one side of the coin and not all of the risk and a lot of the downside. But I think that being an employee or an entrepreneur, it can get a bad rap. But for me, I think it's not only a great entry point. I know this is how John got started. We'll talk about that here in a minute. This is how a lot of my friends and colleagues really got into this industry working for someone else. But also people come back to it. Like I was talking to Russ Henneberry a few hours ago. You guys remember him from the Avatar training, but Russ has owned his own companies, worked for other people, gone back to being an entrepreneur, gone back to working for someone else. And the benefits of that, of course, are the stability, right? In terms of income and just the risk, not having that stress, not having everything riding all on your shoulders or a few of your shoulders. Insurance, there's a container that you're sort of in as an employee working for someone else where you can try things and just do things that you couldn't do as an entrepreneur because it's not your business, right? So working for someone else and being an employee, whether you're starting as an intern or whether you're a six-figure employee as a media buyer or a media buyer that's more of an employee but has equity and maybe even rev share in a company, which was what I ended up experiencing. There's so many different levels of this, but this is definitely a path. Another path, which is the one that Ezra first took, is starting or growing your own B2C business, right? And becoming an entrepreneur. So maybe you're selling physical products or you're selling information, but you're selling more to consumers. You're not a marketing agency. You're actually just building an online business and growing it via everything that you learned in TMTP. And this is exactly how Ezra got started. I think his first business was a wig business. And he's launched and grown a ton of different businesses, but he wouldn't have been able to do that if he wasn't a really good media buyer. And Ezra is still in our ad accounts every day. We work together. He's in Boom's ad account. He's launching campaigns. Like he is still one of us, even though he's the CEO of, a few different businesses. So you don't have to take the route of working for someone else. Of course, you can use this skill set to start and or grow your own business, which is pretty fun. Another route, which is pretty self-explanatory, I'm going to go into detail on this, is freelancing or building and growing a digital advertising agency. So, of course, a lot of my friends have agencies and different size agencies that cater to different size businesses and different verticals. They all have different pricing plans. Some have employees, some are solo. I mean, there's, again, such a range here. But this is a really common route for media buyers, whether you are just starting out and so you want to bring on a client, maybe even work for free to get proof of concept and to get that experience so that you can slowly start to bring on smaller clients and see where that goes. Ralph Burns, that I used to do a podcast called Perpetual Traffic, and my co-host was Ralph Burns, and he started about 7 or 8 years ago just running Facebook ads as an affiliate marketer. He was in corporate America for 30 years, decided to get out, didn't know what to do, figured that he would try this whole ad thing because he was interested in marketing. He got some affiliate marketing stuff to work. Then he brought on a few small clients, and he's built this agency to where now he has, I think, almost 40 employees doing, has a multi-million dollar agency. I think they were in the Forbes top 500 companies, maybe. I mean, it's crazy. And this has only happened over the course of 6 or 7 years. But, he took the route of first being a freelancer, then growing an agency. I worked for someone else. Now, I went into freelancing. Then I tried to build an agency, right? There's a path here when you develop these skill sets that is going to be unique to all of us. And then the last one, and I'm not saying these are the only ways that you can apply this skill set. These are just the most common. But the last one is taking this skill set and the knowledge and implementation and teaching others. Right. So I can't remember the stat, but I heard a few weeks ago the amount of marketing agencies, digital marketing agencies, and freelancers in the world is much, much smaller than the amount of businesses in the world. And we all know that eventually, I mean, businesses will almost all businesses will most likely need to be doing some form of digital marketing, or it's going to be hard for them to exist. So the fact that people even think that there's a lot of competition when it comes to this stuff, I think is completely ridiculous. And I think a route that we can go with this skill set that one of the routes I've decided to take is taking this skill set, this knowledge, these experiences I have, and because I love this stuff, and turning around and passing it to other people to help start or ignite their path in being a media buyer and really giving you guys the skill set that you need to go out into the world and apply this in whatever way best serves yourself and the people that you're working with. So whether it's consulting or workshops, events, public speaking, group coaching, online courses, but teaching others this skill set and getting paid for that is absolutely a viable option once you have the experience and you've proven that you've done it. And if you're interested in teaching others, not everybody else is, but I think that we feel like because a lot of us see a lot of marketers marketing to marketers, right? And we feel like this industry is very small. But if you look out, right, like a few years ago, I spoke at an event that was all people in auto marketing that were just marketing automobiles. And like they had never heard of the stuff that we talk about, but they all have viable businesses and they need this information. And there's so many industries and people out in the world that really need the information and the experience that we have. So think outside of this like digital marketing and internet marketing bubble. Not that there aren't still people here to help. Like I'm still happy to serve this industry, but I'm also interested in looking out and seeing who else could benefit from this. And I think, me passing this knowledge down to you guys passing this knowledge down to other people, think of how many lives we can affect in a positive way. It's pretty cool. So my path, a lot of you guys know some of the details here, but just to show you like how quickly this can jump around really just in the last 8 years. In 2012, started as an intern at digital marketer. I think I was making like $12 an hour. I was still bartending at night. Honestly, I would have taken the internship even if it wasn't paid because I knew it was a ticket in the door to acquire knowledge and to acquire experience. And after the internship, I was hired full time, but I started doing organic social media because that's kind of the gateway drug into this paid stuff. And then that led into me wanting to buy ads. I became the media buyer late 2013. the next year because I was still doing the media buying. But a benefit of being a media buyer is that you learn about almost every other aspect of the company. You learn a ton about marketing and you become more of a generalist, which is something that I've really seen and admire about John's career. You know, he talks a lot about data in this class, but he's truly a digital marketer. He's a generalist, and I would trust in any aspect of an online business. And that's another cool progression that I think a lot of us have experienced, and those of you guys that keep at this will experience, is that it becomes so much more than media buying. Like Ezra, right? He's still a media buyer, but he's also filling so many other roles, which I was able to do too. I did that for about 3 years, was the VP of marketing, decided, okay, I want more freedom. I want to be able to work wherever I want. You know, I want to be able to work when I want. I want to be able to, I want to profit from the courses that I put out, like there were lots of reasons that I left and lots of reasons that you guys have and will leave full-time positions. And I'm happy to answer questions about that. But when I left DM, I just knew I needed to leave, but I had no idea what the hell I was going to do. So the most logical transition for me at the time was to start consulting and freelancing because I needed cash. I needed to pay the bills. And I'd also built up a good amount of authority to where people were willing to pay me for my time, which was very nice. And I was starting to run ads for people. And that's really what I jumped first into. I started thinking about building out an agency and hiring employees. And I realized it just wasn't my jam. Like agency work just isn't what makes me the most happy. I like to be more thoroughly invested in the projects I'm working on and focus on two, three, maybe four things versus many more. But everybody has, everybody works in a different way. So something else that I started doing that was a bit more fulfilling versus just trading time for money, right? Hey, I'll hop on a call with you every week for 12 weeks and do some consulting for a flat fee, or I'll run your ads for a flat fee. That was nice to pay the bills eventually, but I wanted to be paid for my success. So in 2018, I started working out deals where I would get equity in certain companies that I was running ads or running marketing for, or doing rev share deals, which is great and a little bit less risky. A few of those worked out, a few of those didn't. A few of them I'm still working on today. In late 2018, I also started to get back into teaching, mostly because it's just what I love. And as I said earlier, the most important aspect of success is our true fulfillment and us feeling good. And it's so much more important than the money. So of course we make money from teaching and from this info business that we've built, but I truly do it because I love it. But you'll notice that I first had to start doing the things that were going to pay the bills, and then that gave me the freedom to get back into what I truly knew would make me happy. And of course, they complement one another also. And then now, this year, John and Ezra and I are going to be working on a B2C company. So applying these skills sort of from the ground up, which is the next step in my path. So as I said, guys, everybody's path is different, but look how quickly things can change because this stuff moves, right? People need us. And this is just such a big lever in terms of the economy today. And there's so many different entry points into this, which is really exciting. John, do you want to talk a little bit about your path here? Just because I think telling these different stories, which that's going to be a big part of my book, like telling the stories of a lot of my friends in this industry and kind of where they've gone and how it worked out, like that shows you a possible path for you. So John, I just wanted you to kind of go through it because you've had a different experience, but lots of overlap too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the generalist versus specialist thing is really the key crux of it, because my take on your career is that you really like had a specialized form of knowledge and you were so incredible at it that it helped you kind of get lifted up to help lead others and guide them. And that puts you in more of a generalist spot. But for me, I started as an intern at this company, Smart Touch Interactive. They were building a CRM, and I just kind of did whatever they needed. So I ran some ads, and I worked with some data stuff, and designed web pages, which I do not know why anyone had me do that, but I sure did it, and I actually didn't do too
I
bad of a
know. I
job, all
think
things
the same
considered.
thing. Like as an intern, I was building membership sites and I'm like, why did someone trust me with that? Hey, but you take what you can get,
And that was
right? I
actually,
would have done anything, John. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
like, I just wanted the experience.
And that's really, really a big part of it. And this is, I was still in college when I was doing this internship. So it was great because I had studied communications, and I mean, I absolutely loved what I studied, but it's not super practical because we were talking about Plato and Aristotle and all this abstract stuff. So I wanted to ground my sort of theoretical knowledge and my really good, I was a really good writer in something that actually would give me a job when I graduated. So when I graduated, I got a job as a marketing specialist at this medical app company in Texas because my parents were both, or are both physicians, and so I knew quite a bit about the healthcare system, doctor struggles, and I was like, oh, I'd love this because I, learned a lot about marketing as an intern, and I think I could serve you guys well because I understand your target audience.
And
And
John,
it
that's a
worked
good
out really well.
example.
I was at that company for, go ahead.
Sorry, I think there's an overlap. I didn't mean to talk over you, but this is an example of, I mean, this obviously isn't where you've ended up, but taking even just through your internship, like that skill set and then applying it in a vertical that you thought you at least knew you knew a lot about and you thought maybe you wanted to be in for the rest of your life,
Hmm.
which is what we're sold, and such a such a
That's,
pile of crap.
yeah, definitely what I thought at the time. I was like, all right, I'll work here forever. And that didn't work out, but actually, I'm so glad I'm not still there. But it went really well, and actually, it went so well that they bumped me from just someone that kind of did, a really niche thing where I had a supervisor, and they said, hey, you're just going to be in charge of this. And it sounds a little more glamorous than it was. I didn't have, I think my budget was like $8,000 for the entire year. So they were very what is it, penny rich, pound poor thinkers, where they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on technology, but didn't want to spend any money on advertising to get the technology out there. So it was a very good learning opportunity. But I was truly a generalist here. I ran the email marketing. I built websites for different clinics. I ran Google ads. I did pretty much anything you can think of in marketing. I managed interns, and we all created content. So I did quite a bit of work. It was a very exhausting job.
Yeah,
And
but
I
you
kind
kind
of
of got to
realized like
combine
I
a
need
lot
to
of
be somewhere
different
where I can
things.
grow more. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did. I did. And I learned what I hated, which was really good. I realized I don't want to be designing web pages for a living. So I actually, my wife, Catherine, wouldn't let me get away with not giving her credit for this. So she found a job at Digital Marketer, and she's like, oh, you should apply for this. You'd be great at it. And so I did, and I applied, and I went over to just do marketing coordinator. And basically, I was running the email department. And that was something I'd done in my old job, sort of one of the spokes of the wheel, not the full thing. But it was actually really great to make this transition because it gave me a lot more time. It was like a very demanding job, and there was a lot going on, but it gave me a lot of time to focus in one area on
Yeah.
the email
And
marketing, and
you
I was able to
learned.
take my sort of,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
the
learned a
best
ton.
part
Yes, I will say.
about that environment was we just learned. And you know what was funny? I was John's boss, which is funny to think about now, John.
Molly is a great boss, by the way. Um, but yeah, it changed a lot, and it was good for me because yeah, it was a very like there was a lot of opportunity to learn, and I had always been a total generalist in everything I did, and I kind of realized, especially working for Molly, who had a very intense specialization, but could do the general stuff as well. Like I need to pick a path, right? I need to find somewhere that I can go in and be sort of an expert because I wanted to be teaching people. And I started creating all these reports on the emails that we were sending, and it was something that we hadn't really been doing. And that kind of helped me evolve into this role of being an analyst. So I stepped outside of just the email stuff and started managing all of the different metrics surrounding the business, right? Tracking how the membership was doing, tracking how the paid traffic spend was doing, tracking still how the email was, how our site was performing, and all that. And that really strong foundation and kind of focus let me become a teacher. So not only was I doing this work, I also created the data and analytics cert for digital marketer, wrote a bunch of articles, and created some of the execution plans. And that sort of combination of specialty and generalization helped me take my next big step, which was becoming the marketing operations manager. So there was a lot of shuffling around. I don't exactly remember what prompted it, but there was a time when they restructured the company and they're like, oh, we need someone who can go run the technical side of this. So not the Facebook ads, but someone that can manage a team, make sure that these funnels are getting made. And I was a really good fit for it because I had been tracking how every funnel in the business was performing for like a year and a half or something like that, even longer. So that was a really, really awesome change. It was great for me. I really love managing people. It's probably the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. Um, and I loved it because it mixed everything together. And then after Molly left, she had all these clients that she was working with, and she was like, "Oh, this would be something that you would be really great at. I would love your help on this, etc." And so Molly convinced me, and I was very interested in it already. But you convinced me to take the leap, and I jumped out and started doing consulting. So this is Data Centric Marketing is the name of the consulting company that I run, kind of freelancing, kind of consulting, all that. But I've been doing that for a while now. But then in 2019, Molly started working with Ezra, producing Train My Traffic Person, and they had me come in to help kind of manage the launches, and it's been amazing. So I'm getting the best of both worlds now. I will say I personally thrive more as an entrepreneur, like Molly was talking about. My risk tolerance is actually very, very low,
Yeah, like mine's much higher than
which
John.
it can be good, it can be bad, but
It's why our paths have been
mhm.
different. But it's also why we balance
Yeah,
one
yeah, and
another
then
out in such a good way.
yeah, I think, and when I say my risk tolerance is low, to me that's not a bad thing, nor do I think it's bad to have really high risk tolerance. Like you can't get anything done if there aren't people that are willing to take a leap. Molly was able to jump out and do the consulting. She just said like, this is what I need to do. And for me, having someone to kind of help me make the transition was really essential for me to do that. But it's been really great, and I like where we are now, and I think Molly has this experience too, where we have a blend of both worlds. So most of my time and
Mhm.
energy goes to smart marketer because I love that team environment. I like really working together to build something that's larger than yourself, and thinking about big strategic moves, and getting
Helping you
to
guys.
help grow
Mhm.
and take a vision to fruition. But doing some of the consulting is still nice because you get to keep the hands-on experience, and it's nice because it tends to be a little bit more profitable, but it
Yeah.
also is sometimes unpleasant to be digging around for leads, looking for opportunities. So I get to kind of cherry pick and do it when the company sounds fun and when I feel like I've got the bandwidth. I don't have to take every opportunity. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
and
really
then the
balancing
B2C thing, I'm
balancing
really excited about that transition.
And then John, like really balancing those short-term decisions, like things like consulting, that's going to be more of a cash cow for us with the long-term stuff, like the B2C company and, everything with Smart Marketer that's just really fulfilling for us. So, thank you so much,
Hmm.
John. That was great. And I just want, that was an exercise. I also shared Ralph's story, which is much different, right? He was in corporate America for 25, 30 years and then randomly made this shift. Ezra's been starting and growing businesses for 15 years, I think since he was 16 or 17. And he's never worked for someone else. And well, actually, he did have a Google agency back in the day. I'll take that back. So I just wanted to discuss this because I want you to think about like, where have you been and where do you want to go? And how do you want that to feel while also realizing that you might have already been in all of these scenarios and or you might be in them in the future, and that's okay. A lot of them can work together, right, as John was just saying. But no matter your path, this is like a huge life lesson that I want you guys to be open to. I really believe you have to first establish your values or your non-negotiables, whatever you want to call them, in terms of what is going to not only make you the money that you need to live the life you want to live, but also have that fulfillment and really feel good about life and not just go through the day to day, not just get through life, but actually thrive and enjoy life. The key to that, no matter which path you choose, is establishing your values. And sometimes you can't really establish them until you have experience. Like John, I think that was both of our experiences through our internships and our first jobs. We didn't really know. Now we're so set on like what we want to do and what our values are. I'm going to share some of my values with you guys here in a minute. So if you're just getting started on this path, you might not know yet, but what's going to become important, and I know what's important for a lot of you guys who have been in the game, and what could make you feel better is really ensuring that your values and your non-negotiables, that they match the other people that you're working with. Because the interesting thing about business, really, no matter what you're doing, even though we're online and we can be sitting in our pajamas right now wherever we want in this moment in time, business always has to do with people, right? Even if you feel like you're setting up the most introverted business of all times, I guarantee you that you're still going to have to interact with other humans. And especially if you're doing your own marketing, you're going to have to think about other humans because you're going to need to speak to them through your advertising. So there's always this connection with other people in business, no matter what. And the key to success, which is so much more important than the money that you make, is ensuring that those values align. And that's been something that I've really figured out the last few years that has made me a lot happier. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. So they can really be whatever you want. I have like 20 to 25 that I've written down that I keep in a notebook. Some are a little bit more personal, but I just want to share like some of my favorites. And John, maybe you could add in some of yours at the end, because I know that we're different and it'll
Sure.
just give people examples. Again, there's no specific structure for this, but it's like when I'm thinking about whether I want to partner in a business with someone, whether I want to bring someone on as a client, whether I want to do a podcast interview with someone, right? Or whether I want to work with someone, whether I want to be hired as an employee at their business, like this is what I'm talking about, these values, and ensuring that you guys share as many of the same values as possible. That plus open communication is what is going to lead to success. Because honestly, the biggest failure that I see in business for a business that's selling a product or service that a market already wants is self sabotage when it comes to the human relationships, right? And a lot of that is because number one, the communication sucks, and or there is a misalignment when it comes to the true values and what everybody wants when money is taken out of the equation. So a few of mine are, I have to truly believe that the product or service that I'm marketing or promoting, that it provides a positive transformation for consumers. So this sounds like a no duh, but there are lots of marketers out there that would market anything that's going to make them a dollar. And I just don't operate in that way. I just can't. It doesn't feel good to me. So, first and foremost, I actually have to believe in what I'm doing, even if it's a consulting call, right? Of course, I'm going to ask before I set up a consulting agreement, hey, what are you selling? Who I'm going to check the product out. I'm going to check the service out. I'm going to make sure that it's actually providing a positive transformation for people on the other end, because I'm not in this just for the sake of commerce and just for the sake of selling people shit on the internet. That becomes unfulfilling very quickly. Something else is, I enjoy and I feel that projects are most successful when I work with very high vibe, happy, positive people that see the bigger picture and truly care about what they're doing. That's something that in the first, and I try not to make quick judgments about people, especially because we're meeting people online and through calls. But whenever maybe I'm speaking to a potential client, one of the first things I'm trying to read is, does this person lean to the positive in life? Are they going to give me the benefit of the doubt? Are they going to be fun to work with? Because I've been in a lot of situations where that's not the case and it's not fun for me, I don't operate well and the project usually doesn't go well. And I just see that, living on the negative side of things isn't good for business across the board. But this is something that I'm always looking for and really hoping that, the people I'm working with are feel the same way about this. This is Ezra's mission, but something that we've all taken on at Smart Marketer, and it's said so well, but serve the world unselfishly first, then profit. I want to work with people that truly believe that they have a gift or they have something that can help the world, and they are willing to focus on getting that out and serving the right people, and then knowing that they will make the money that they need to sustain the life that's right for them because of that work. But they're not in it just to make a dollar and make the money. You guys can see maybe a theme here for me. Um, I also want to feel valued for my work and contribution. So I'm not a super transactional person where it's like, I don't just want to do business deals where it's like, you do your job, I do my job, we never talk, we never appreciate each other. And it's very black and white in that way, right? Like, I love to share the wealth and words of affirmation. And especially as a manager of other people, or even working with someone like John, I want to consciously always be aware of telling him thank you and like really appreciating that I get to work with these other people, but also wanting to feel valued in return, right? Whether that's monetarily. So, I've worked in jobs where I just didn't feel like I was getting paid the amount of money that I was worth, or that the company was maybe just looking to pay me less because that was their mindset. Like, I want to work with people that have an abundance mindset when it comes to money, and they're not trying to pick apart my worth, because I know what it's taken and the hundreds and thousands of hours that I've put into getting here. And, I don't ever want to feel like the other person's questioning my value because I'm not questioning theirs. And I find that that tends to be the healthiest working relationships. I want to feel like I'm making a difference and I'm having fun. If you're not having fun, it will quickly fall apart. It doesn't matter how successful the business is. I really believe that businesses need fun as the glue to hold things together. And I know 100% that's the secret to success, that everything that we're all doing here at Smart Marketer is we are truly having fun doing it. And we want to have fun with you guys. And when you're having fun, it just changes the dynamics of everything, and it gives it so much more meaning. So here are some other values that I don't personally hold them all the time, but things that I've heard from other people. Like Joe Murphy, our community manager, she only works with clients who have environmentally friendly brands because that's something that she really cares about. So she says, okay, that's my vertical. Like, I only want to work with people that I feel are making a good impact on the environment, which is amazing. Some of you only want to work a certain schedule. One of my business mentors, James Schramko, you guys will see an interview from him in Team Traffic when you get in there. He has a book called Work Less, Make More. And what's really important to him in business is that he only works Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Because of the career that he's had and the way he's lived his life, he really wants to put business in as small of a box as possible so that he can live. And so, in any business relationship, anything he's doing, that is a huge value for him. That's a huge priority and something that needs to be brought to the table. And we all have our stuff, right? Some people only like to work with women, or they want to serve the dog market, or again, just realizing the beauty of um, how many different ways we can apply this skill set, but that's all part of your value set. And this is what you should be looking for when it comes to working with other humans, in this capacity, right? It might be that you work remotely, not during the summer, like whatever it is for you to live the life that you want. It's just realizing what's important to you. So I now want to go into a section here where I specifically talk about working with clients. So whether you're a freelancer, whether you're building a huge agency, like if Ralph Burns was here from Tier 11, I would say the same stuff to him as I'm about to say, and I've said a lot of this to Ralph. But here's my advice for working with clients. And I said this earlier, but step one, you must have experience. That's a no-brainer, but I see a lot of people trying to sell services and they've never proven that they can run successful campaigns. So step one, you must have the experience, right? If you don't have a few wins under your belt, that should be the focus for you before you try to go and get paying clients, right? Because your clients are buying an after state too, just like we've talked about throughout the last 4 months together. It's not just consumers of B2C products or physical products that are buying a certain after state. People that are hiring us to run their ads are buying an after state too, right? They are hoping to have more leads. They're hoping to generate more customers. They're hoping to have a return on ad spend, whatever it is. That looks like success for them. When they think about hiring you, they are hiring you to solve that specific problem. And you want to make sure that you have a certain degree of confidence that you can actually achieve that for them. So you need to use your past experience to communicate your value and make a deal. And I put or lack thereof because there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, XYZ company, it looks like you're not running a lot of ads. I just went through this amazing mentorship, but I don't have a lot of experience. Therefore, I'm not going to charge you, or I'm not going to charge you much. But I think there's a lot that I could do for your brand. When it comes to advertising, why don't you give me a shot? And then after a few months, we'll see where it stands. And maybe you could hire me, right? As you could be one of my first clients. Or you could use your past experience to say, I've spent hundreds of $1 million on ads in this particular vertical. Here are the results that I've generated. Like that is the value that you are communicating to make the deal. I see so many agencies and freelancers talking about the number of hours they're going to work and how many creatives they're going to test. And like, yes, there's some, I mean, you have to go into a certain amount of detail sometimes. I try to not, right? I try to stay very high level with clients and make sure that that after state that I'm promising them, or telling them that there's a chance that we can achieve, it's something that I've done before. And that's the way that I'm communicating that value. Or if I'm not, so for example, we were at Blue Ribbon last week and I met a couple who's running an awesome company. I matched them with a friend here in the office space here in Amsterdam. And the company reached out and said, hey, he only has experience with info businesses, but we're looking for someone with experience with e-commerce. And I was like, hey, this person's, they're eager, they're willing, they're at a price point that makes sense for you. Even though they haven't had e-commerce experience, I have full confidence that they will be able to get you to the next step here. And this is a good fit for where your company is right now. And he's like, okay, great. I totally agree. Signed, right? So much better than, signing up with the $10,000 a month huge agency where there's a ton of risk involved. Maybe they needed to bring on a freelancer who is less experienced, but therefore was a bit cheaper and might be willing to go more the extra mile for them, right? So it's about matching yourselves with businesses and certain situations that are going to best fit the amount of experience you have or don't have. So here are some tips for getting clients when you're just starting out. I've been really speaking to this, but be willing to work for free or strictly performance based, right? Make it so risk free for the other person. Like when I was just getting started, even with the organic social stuff, I was working with some local businesses where I grew up completely risk free. Hey, let me do organic social for you completely unpaid just to see if I can get results. But really looking at your currency as the experience you're getting and not necessarily the money that you're making. Pick one vertical and master it first. This isn't always the case. This isn't something that I did. I mean, I did start in information businesses first. That's who I first advertised to. And now I've, advertised for every business type. But, whether the vertical is business type or whether it's a certain market, maybe you just love the beauty and skincare market and that's where you want to take this. That can be helpful when just starting out because you can get proof of concept, but it's not completely necessary. As I said earlier, focus on cracking the code and making sure that you can repeatedly get results versus focusing all your time on just acquiring new customers because your churn will be high and that won't work out in the end. Look for internship and shadowing opportunities. So, again, kind of look for work where you might not get paid, but that might promise future opportunity or at least give you that experience. And also look for markets with a ton of opportunity versus those already flooded with marketers and ads. So, maybe look at markets, like I said, the automotive industry earlier, or any market that you can go to that's like, wow, digital marketing and specifically paid traffic hasn't really made its way over here yet. So anything I do, even if it's a really simple campaign, is going to make such a huge difference because no one's really done much over here before. Versus trying to go in a market like the digital marketing industry that's already super flooded and has tons of agencies and proof of concept, et cetera, et cetera. So, just another quick tip. And then tips for getting clients when you're more experienced. So let's think about you guys who already have agencies or who are, already working with clients. Referrals are always the best way to get clients. That's where I get most of my consulting clients, from other people that I've worked with or people that I've met at events. Putting your expertise out there via content marketing, public speaking to build authority and be helpful. I mean, that's why I've done all the podcasts and public speaking I've done over the years. I mean, I love it because I love connecting with y'all, but it's also a great way to build authority so that I don't have to do a lot of cold lead gen for my consulting stuff because people come to me. I've given them value first. They listen, they know that I know what the hell I'm talking about. Maybe we build a relationship, they already align with me in some way, and then they email me or they reach out. They Instagram DM me or Facebook message or all the channels we have today. But once you've proven it and you feel like you're ready to give back, going after those free channels is a great way to generate clients. Obviously, attending events, trade shows, masterminds. Nahal Kazim, you guys met Nahal in the scaling module. He has an agency, and he's specifically working with businesses who have subscription models or subscription boxes. So this year, instead of attending a bunch of events where it's like a bunch of marketing agencies trying to market to marketers, he's going to trade shows that subscription box companies are going to, and he's positioning himself as an ads agency for that type of business, which people love when and if you can specialize towards them. But attending events, if it's the right event, and meeting people in person, it's just always the best way to make a quick connection, especially if you're trying to generate clients quickly. Obviously, paid traffic and everything we've learned throughout this course, I've made lots of mentions to what to do if you are running ads for a service-based business. So, a case study funnel, maybe using a case study as a lead gen, using some sort of training. Go and look at all the marketing tier 11's doing right now. It's pretty good. And generating leads that hopefully then become clients through funnels like a case study funnel. Another way to get more clients is partnerships. So, looking at other types of agency or B2B type businesses that do something similar and complement your services as a media buyer. So, a good example of this is Mari Connor, who's in the Facebook group. She has a Facebook ads agency called Marigold Marketing, and she is booming the last year. She's had huge growth. And the reason for that is that she ended up partnering with a guy who has an agency where he builds and runs info businesses. So she just has this built-in lead source. Like every client and business that comes through his ecosystem now automatically becomes a client of hers. So she's not having to chase them one off. A lot of people do this for, for example, Tom Breeze has a YouTube agency. Mike Rhodes, you guys met, has a Google agency, working together and just sharing clients. When you offer complementary services, it's a great way to get clients. And if your friends or people who are doing similar stuff to you, if they're enjoying working with someone, then you probably will too. So, just some tips to get clients if you're already out there doing this. And then more so like ways to make money, right? This is a question I get a lot. And it definitely depends kind of where you are on this scale. Are you just getting started as a freelancer taking on your first client? Or do you have a multi-million dollar agency? But these are all of the models that I've used when it comes to actual billing. And you guys ask me this a lot. So the first one is a flat retainer. So of course you could always charge people a flat fee monthly. I hear of flat fees starting from anything like $200 a month to run ads, which has to be just something very simple. I think that's too low, up to tens of thousands of dollars in terms of a flat fee, to be a media buyer, right? So there's the flat retainer, there's retainer plus percentage of ad spend. So, okay, you're going to pay me a flat fee plus 10% of ad spend, 20% of ad spend. I don't love doing percentage of spend as much because it's not always a reflection of performance. And sometimes just the seasonality of a business can kind of hurt your pocket there. Another option is retainer, but tiered based off of percentage of ad spend. So this is something that Ralph does at tier 11. It's not necessarily a percentage of ad spend like 10 or 20%, but he says, okay, here are these 11 tiers. Depending on where your spend is, okay, you're between $100 and $120,000. So your monthly retainer is $20,000, right? So instead of percentage of spend, he's just increasing their flat retainer based off of different tiers that they move up with spend. One of my favorites is performance based. So either getting paid as a media buyer based off of the number of customers that you generate, the number of leads, or even obtaining a certain return on ad spend. Obviously, there's a lot of risk here, right? Like for example, when I first got started, I started with a few of these guys because I knew I needed something to just pay the bills, something stable that was coming in. And then I started mixing with more performance based, and then maybe even like percentage of top line revenue. If you're starting to do a lot of work in the business and you know that, for example, I was working with a business that only relied on affiliate traffic. When I brought paid traffic into the mix from social channels, the business like doubled or tripled. So I wanted a percentage of overall revenue, which was a viable option for me. But I also had a few other flat retainer clients at the moment so that I knew that my bills were handled. And then number 6 is equity deals. So these are probably the least common and maybe happen over after a year or so of working together. But if it makes sense for you to become a partner and actually get ownership in that business and commit long term, that's something that I see happen a lot with media buyers. And as I said earlier, I'm always looking for the best mix of the above options, to fit where I am in my life currently, not only the lifestyle that I'm looking to lead, but also, what revenue goals I'm needing to hit. And, right now I've got a few of these down here. I've got a few of these here. Really none of these up here anymore. I'm pretty much only living down here because I've got to the point where I don't really need retainers to cover my day to day. Like I'm just in a different place than I was a few years ago. So there are other options and other ways to negotiate this, but these are the most common. Let me know if you guys have questions with those about those. But working out a deal with a client, especially the pricing, is all about the communication of your value and your past experience. So don't forget that. And this is something that John is a lot better at than I am, like this negotiation phase when it comes to beginning to work with a client. And a lot of it is explaining sort of what you're going to do and how much it's going to cost. So John has been nice enough to give us this document that he's about to show. John, I'm going to let you show your screen here in a minute. But if you go to bit.ly/services list TMTP, this will open. If you duplicate and make a copy, we're fine with you using this or using a variation of this for yourself. John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's why we're giving this, or you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I
Just don't
wanted to,
steal my logo.
yeah, just don't steal his logo.
Or
But
my
I'm going to share the screen or give you the controls here, John, so that you can
Yeah, let
walk
me take
people
over.
through this. And the presentation's not over, guys. I still have a good amount of stuff I want to go through, but I just want to show this to you guys because you can use a variation of this when you are going through the negotiation process with a client, just to make sure everything is very clear. This is all about expectations properly being set. So, John, will you quickly walk through this with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So things are a little different for me than Molly because Molly is a name that you all know, and when someone approaches her to work with her, they're already sold on her. And very often people that want to work with me are a little bit familiar with what I do, but it's a lot harder with the analytics work to kind of explain it and frame it properly. And there's a huge problem with scope creep, right? So you say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, clean your Google Analytics account up. And people don't have a good understanding of the data side. And so they think, okay, well, that means you'll also fix my Infusionsoft problems and you'll also, come clean my car 3 times a week or whatever. So I found that I really needed to set expectations very clearly, both to protect myself and my time and to help people understand if this is a service they really wanted. So I found myself doing the same, 3 to 5 things over and over again, auditing people's analytics setups, doing a clean analytics setup for them, doing monthly reporting on their paid media performance, and doing some coaching. And after I'd been doing the kind of consulting game for about 6 months, I realized I am so bad at doing proposals because I get so in the weeds of doing the work. I think there were like 4 or 5 clients I had where I just forgot to charge them. Basically, they gave me a problem and I was like, I'm gonna solve this, and I solved the problem, and then I was like, whoa, crap. When I was doing my taxes, the next year, and I was like, wow, I definitely did not get any money for the work I did there. So, uh, glad I realized that sooner rather than later. But what I did is put this thing together. I called my master services list, and this document is all of the main services that I provide for clients. And so anytime I have a prospecting call, like I just did, well, there's really only one person I've been, potentially working with so far this year. But when I jumped on a call with them when we were sort of introduced to each other, and I said, "What do you need? What challenges do you guys have?" And based on that, I said, "Okay, I'm going to go away from this call, and kind of take this master services document that I have and put the stuff in there that I think you guys need. I'll send it back over to you, tweak it up, make sure that it's customized to your business, and if you guys are happy with it, we'll move forward." So I jumped on like a 30-minute call with them once the lead had already been generated. And I was able to say, okay, they need an analytics audit and really they need a clean implementation. But I realized they didn't know they needed this second step. And part of the audit is it shows them, where the holes in their tracking are. So I was able to come in here and send them over a statement of work very quickly where I just took the audit breakdown that I already had, deleted all the extra stuff I didn't need from this and sent this over. And I added, what their website was, what their specific goals were based on the conversation we'd had. But it takes about, I mean, I would say, if I'm being honest, 30 minutes of customization just to like really think through and make sure the stuff is clean and I'm happy with it. But it doesn't take all that much work to get these proposals sent out because I have this great master document that I can always work from anytime I'm, reaching out to someone or putting a proposal in front of a potential client. And so I think, based on at least my own experience, this is the best way to do this, especially if
Mm,
you're someone like me that struggles a little bit with follow up, or you get so excited about it that you kind of forget about the, you know, all the sort of back end stuff that has to happen where people give you some money for your time and your work.
yeah.
So I
And
definitely
John,
think you
really
guys
quick,
should take this. Oh, go ahead.
and I think a lot of this too is really helpful for you guys to figure out what services you do offer and being able to match those, like recommend the right service for where the company is at that moment, right? And that's something you get better at with time. But now I know when I need to sell someone an audit versus when they would be better fit for consulting versus when they would be better for monthly management. And a lot of that depends on what's going on in my life, but this type of document helps you think about that and also properly sets the goals and deliverables and clearly communicates what they're going to get and sets the proper expectation so that there's never any question.
Yep. And I have to say, I'm super lucky because my wife is a consultant for Accenture. It was fun to see a sort of stat from one of their reports. But I have gotten to observe how well the corporate world communicates and sets expectations. So they're doing, two, three, $4 million deals with companies like Ulta and Nike, and those are the only two I can think of. But big brands that you guys would know the names of. But really, they have things just like this, right? Where they have different goals that they set before they even start the project, and they have clear deliverables outlined, and they have the details of what's going to go into it. And we're going to start at this step, and then once we finish that, we'll do this next step. So thinking about all the different things you can do in this way and kind of getting that 30,000-foot view before you go to a client really, really helps you be more effective on a sales call when you're trying to close an opportunity. And it really just makes both you and the client have a better experience because nobody is thinking, oh, this should have happened or that should have happened or did I miss this thing? You know exactly what goes into it. So I think
Yeah,
these
love that, John.
particular um, jobs are very analytics specific. They're not necessarily media buying focused, but I
Of
do think you
course.
guys can take this concept and apply it to whatever skills you want to do. And Molly was talking about specialization. Maybe you're going to specialize in a specific vertical, like info business, or maybe you specialize in a specific field within the larger digital marketing. Like for me, it's analytics. For Molly, it's running ads. For you guys, it'll probably be some subset of running ads. Maybe you really like to do the targeting, or maybe you really like to do, um, the sort of ongoing maintenance of campaigns that are running. You can create different services for each of those, outline these details, and then anytime you need to pitch someone and you don't know what they need, you show them this document. Or when you've pitched someone and you know exactly what they need, you just send them exactly the details that suit their business's challenge. So this is a really, really great tool that helps to me really kind of overcome some of my personal shortcomings, right? I'm not the best at following up because I get so lost in problem solving and forget about the email side of it. So I really think something like this is
Awesome.
going to be a helpful tool. And if you guys want to get this one just as a starting point, all you need to do is when you're here is go to File and make a copy, and you can duplicate this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Hope you guys find that useful. Let us know. I think something else, and I kind of already touched on this, but client dissatisfaction, I believe, comes from a real dissonance between expectation and reality. And it's why I like that document, John, because it makes everything very clear. Or a clash of values. We talked about that earlier. It might seem a little high in the sky, but I promise you guys, if something doesn't work out in a business relationship, it's either a clash of values or there was the client's expectations or someone's expectations didn't match reality or didn't match what they felt they were sold. So the more clarity that you can have on both of those fronts, just the happier you're going to be in business, period. And be clear about your boundaries and expectations. Just because someone's paying you money or just because someone's giving you a percentage of their business, it doesn't mean that you have to do everything that they say, or it doesn't mean that they have more power than you. Think about it as two equals coming together and agreeing that working on this project together is going to be beneficial for both parties. And be very clear about your boundaries and expectations because you are an equal part in this experience no matter what you're doing. And some things to think about too, especially with client work. And whenever I'm clear about this, things go better. It's like, how will you communicate? So, what channels are you going to talk to the client via email, Slack, Skype? Who are you going to talk to? Is it going to be specifically them, someone on their team? How often? You want to make sure that you don't get caught in um we've all been in this, but this creep up where it's like, oh my gosh, now this client has my phone number and they're calling me and this is insane, right? Like, in just in terms of, they feel like this is the most important thing in their life, but to you, you have other clients, and that doesn't mean you're going to have the same urgency about their business that they are, depending on how it's set up. So make sure you're very clear, even if this is like an equity deal. How will you communicate via what channels? Who are you going to chat to? When is that going to happen? Right? Just to set those expectations. What happens when stuff isn't working? I mean, most projects you are going to work on, whether you're an employee, whether you own the business, no matter what, there are going to be times, probably more than 50% of the time, where stuff isn't working. And that doesn't mean that you just all call it quits and move forward. Like, what is the protocol when stuff isn't working? How long do you give it? And what does the exit look like for both parties? I've noticed that if you kind of chat about that up front, like, hey, if this doesn't work out, what does that look like? It takes a lot of the pressure off, and it decreases anxiety because you're not wondering, oh, if this isn't going to work, how do I get out of it? Right. Another part of this is communicating results, and making sure that they know, okay, you're running their ads or you're doing, X for them when it comes to digital marketing. How are you going to report the results of your efforts back to them, and how often? And this can be done in a lot of different ways. This is an example of a dashboard that John builds for people. And this is a bit more intensive. This is looking at a lot of data. If you're doing something a bit more simple, like let's say that you are running ads to sell tickets to a live event. Your reporting could be as simple as, hey, every 3 days or once a week, I'm going to send you an email and let you know the number of tickets that we sold and how much we spent to sell those tickets. I'm always up for simplicity, and I always try to find that one success metric or those 1 to 3 success metrics that the client's actually looking for and report on those. Because a lot of times, if I give them too much data, especially people that know what they're doing, they get so caught up in all of these data points, and then they're kind of telling me what to do. And I kind of have to say, hey, you paid for my expertise. I'm getting you these big picture results that you want. Kind of stay in your lane, right? In a really nice way. But John, do you want to kind of talk through this dashboard? I know it's built for a very specific type of company. They care about the cost per conversion, right? CPC is something they want to monitor, click-through rate. You're looking at cost per click, number of clicks, conversions. So you're basically looking at conversions, cost per click, and then breaking those down based off of the campaigns that you're running. So they have a snapshot whenever they want to go look at this dashboard of, okay, how many conversions have I had, and what do these secondary metrics look like? Is there anything else you want to add, John? I guess kind of what I'm saying is it's good, especially if you're wanting to have a ton of transparency, to give a client something like this. This is great to especially have in your own business. But I just find with clients, the more data I give them, usually, um, I don't know, the more like micromanaging that happens. I don't know if you find that, John, or if you have
Yeah.
any thoughts.
So here, here's the way I do this, right? I design dashboards so that you can sort of, at a glance at the top, you get the quick information you actually need, right? So they can jump in and see that. And then if they're interested in drilling deeper, the further down a report you get, the more granular and detailed the information is. So I
Right.
recommend most clients just live in the very top of the report. And
Yep.
I found because this is a service I do for a lot of people, well, not a lot anymore, but something I used to do a lot. And I found that people would say, we want you to build us a dashboard. And I would, talk to them about what their questions were, what they wanted to know, all this stuff. And I'd build it based exactly on their specs, and they'd get it and they'd say, we love it. And then 2 months later, they'd kind of come back and say, hey, we love this thing. It's really cool, but we don't actually know what we're supposed to be doing. So I actually have been doing less of this because I found that data without analysis, so a dashboard like this without someone that's actually going to go in and look at this information and use it to make decisions, isn't that helpful for customers. So I think that keeping it simple, like Molly's saying, is very good, or finding a way to empower someone on a client's team to go in and review it, or using this as your own dashboard
Mhm.
in work you do with them, right? So I've got a bunch of clients where I do calls with them a couple times a month, and I just walk through the dashboard and I say, I'm looking at the data. Here's what it means. Here are the actions that you should take based on what this information is telling us. And so this is not something I would recommend you do outright. I think keeping it really simple, like Molly said, is smart. Some businesses that are especially a little bit more corporate, they kind of need a report to show the higher ups. And so they
Of
may want
course.
something like this just so they can download it and say, look, we have this pretty report that shows we're doing stuff. But at the end of the day, it's way more important to focus on putting the information to work, which you do by
Totally.
actually analyzing it and having that expertise come into play. So
Yeah, and I think whenever I'm talking numbers to clients, context is everything. So if things are looking good, make sure you're communicating that value and talking about why you think it worked and what you're going to do next. If it's not working, explain why you think it's not working and the next steps that you're going to take to make things better. So you've always got to have context with the data. And also realize that the client relationship can and should change over time. Like for me, these are very fluid things where, I might start off consulting, then I might run their ads, then we might do a rev share deal, or who knows what it looks like. But that relationship, you should check back in and say, am I enjoying doing this? Do I want to sort of take it to the next level with this client or not? And that's why I usually start with a 30 to 90-day sort of trial period, depending on what I'm doing, so that every party has an out or can choose to go a different direction and no feelings can be hurt, right? You don't feel trapped forever because you never know what's going to happen. So if it's something that could be long term, I always like to have a trial period. But I think overall, what's so important, guys, is to pay attention to the projects and the clients that you get excited about and look forward to working on, not just the ones that are the highest retainers. If I notice that I'm starting to dread getting on the phone with a client or working on their brand, I need to analyze why is that? And same thing, in the other hand, if I'm just waking up in the middle of the night and wanting to go get on the computer to work on a particular project, I need to pay attention to that excitement and that fun and see if there's, a deeper way, a way that I can go deeper in that particular project. So, here are some tips when it comes to working for someone else full time. So, more of the employee or entrepreneur avatar that John and I both were. So, here are a few tips if you're looking more for a full time job. Reach out to agencies. Agencies hire more ads managers or media buyers usually than brands, right? Or just regular companies that aren't agencies. So agencies like Tier 11, or I mean, there are hundreds, thousands of ad agencies out there. They're great places to get jobs because they're almost in constant need of media buyers. Obviously, job boards, whatever's popular in your area. Honestly, I found my internship at DM on Craigslist, which is crazy. But, Indeed, any of those should have digital media buying jobs available. Obviously, be on the lookout for internships. Communities are fantastic, whether it's a local, like there was a local Austin job Facebook group. And John, I know that's where I posted the job that you responded to in a Facebook group. So think about maybe communities that you
Yep.
can join. They don't even have to be marketing or media buying specific, but even in your local area or for tech companies, like where are people hanging out that might need a media buyer? It could be an in-person meetup. And something else I asked John before this, okay, if you were starting from scratch and you were going to get a job as a media buyer and you didn't have experience, what would you do? And he said that he would find a business that he was interested in that didn't look like they were doing much with paid advertising. He would shoot a video giving them a bunch of tips and, like, here's what I would do if I worked for you. and reach out to them through support, reach out to people that work there on LinkedIn. I'm going into a little bit more detail than you did, John, but this is such a cool idea and something that I've actually done before to get a few kind of dream clients, I would call it. But just reaching out cold and being willing to show and prove your expertise, especially in businesses that look like they're not really doing much through Facebook ad library. Not look like they're doing very much when it comes to running ads. So that's another tip there for you. And then just a few tips from my experience when it comes to having success as an employee. And this is, how to have success in terms of how to continue to increase your earning power, but also how to feel fulfilled. And the first is communicate with whomever or try to get the information about what is the grand vision of this company? Where is this ship headed? Because the more that you understand that, the more that you can find opportunities in the business, whether it's media buying or not, to help grow and to make yourself more valuable to the bottom line. Communicate with your coworkers and teammates. This is something that's helped so much in my career. I've loved most of the people I've worked with, and they've become some of my best friends. And that those relationships, that communication, has meant more than you'll ever know. And you just are willing to do more, and it's just so much deeper when you actually communicate and like the people around you. And same thing, communicate, not the same thing, but back to communication. Make sure that without bragging, you are communicating your value to the team or to your boss. You shouldn't be getting amazing results and data week to week and not tell anybody. That might feel humble, but you still want to be humble while also communicating that value, because it can be easy for people to overlook it, right? Another is context. So try to look out of your box or just your role at the company. Learn as much about the bigger picture as possible. This will help you identify opportunities and then go seek those opportunities. Don't wait for someone to tell you, hey, Molly, go figure this out. Say, hey, I saw that no one was doing this. I tried it. Here are the results. That is so impressive and valuable as an employee, and especially to the employer. And just reiterating, make friends with your coworkers if you like them. Be genuinely interested in the people that you work with. If you are, as I said earlier, we spend the most of our life working, and it's why Ezra employs, I think, 111 people now, and most of them are family or friends of family, from the commune that he grew up on in Hawaii. And people say, don't work with your family. And Ezra's like, that's crap. I want to work with people I love. And if you have clear communication, it shouldn't be a problem. And I just find that the more interested you are in the people you work with, the more you enjoy them, the more successful that you are in your role. Also, as a media buyer, and this is why, a big reason John and I complement each other so well is make sure that you have clean and solid data before you go and communicate your value, because sometimes that can come off weird if you're, it's like, I got a 5x return on ad spend, and then someone really dives into the CRM and it's like, no, you lost us money, So everyone fails, but just try to make sure that you have clean and solid data, because that can hurt your reputation. And use your success and that data to prove your worth to the company so that you can make more money. And always be willing to grow into more of a generalist. It's okay. You can still be a generalist and a media buyer at the same time. And I know we've been chatting about that a lot. So I go back and forth. Okay, last little section here that I'm happy to take some questions, and we've got some more Q&A calls coming up, of course. And this is more for managing a media buyer. So any of you guys who might manage or be the boss of a media buyer now or someday, here are some tips for you. The first one is be prepared to let them fail, right? If you hire a media buyer in the first few things you're trying to do don't work out, that's okay. It doesn't mean that they're a failure. They're trying to figure this stuff out. And a big portion of being a media buyer, as you guys know, is failing. So you have to understand that and support them and give them enough space to be productive, but also give them enough space to be creative. See, a lot of people put too much pressure on media buyers and it zaps their creativity, right? Also, a lot of media buyers and just people in general aren't getting the appreciation that I feel they deserve, like ensure them, tell them if they are important to the company, which I hope they are if you've employed them, make sure that they know that and that they feel valued, right? Hold them to numerical goals so that you can set the right expectation and so that they can know when they're meeting those or not, but also be understanding and flexible and realize that there's always context that can be applied to the data and it's not always about numerical goals. And most importantly, support them, right? Whether it's helping them with ad copy, avatars, hooks, getting or buying them resources like our courses or a designer or events, be there for them and show them that you're willing to invest in them because you appreciate what they're doing for you, right? And make sure that they feel properly compensated and they never question, um, whether you appreciate them and what they're doing, because they will be so much more productive and they will go the extra mile because they truly feel taken care of. And this is truly coming from experience on both sides. And last but not least, keep them in the loop. Make sure that your media buyer isn't in a silo. Make sure that they know what's going on in the company. Media buying spans more than just cold acquisition, more than just inside of Facebook, Google, and YouTube ads managers, right? Keep them in the loop on what's going on so that they have more context as to how they can use paid traffic to grow your business, and just treat them with respect and love, and they will do really good work for you. So, whichever direction you guys take, just do it, right? As I said earlier, a big part of this skill set is the knowledge and keeping up. And the other part is just the experience. So, wherever you are right now, what is that next step to continue this journey and this evolution of what you learned here as a media buyer and what you know as a digital marketer and someone that's operating inside of online businesses? And just remember your value and remember how special of a time this is, guys. And just how grateful we should be for that, because things are going to change. In 5 to 10 years, this will look different. And those of us that are learning this now, that are able to pivot, this skill set will serve us for our entire life. And that is really satisfying. And that freedom is very exciting. So remember your value, always ask for your value, try to never doubt it. I mean, I still deal with imposter syndrome, I would say almost every day. But remember your value, even if you've just gone through this mentorship and you haven't done anything else in this world, in this realm of digital marketing. And I know most of you, that's not the case. Know your value and you've done more than most people out there. So now go do something with it and take that next step. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Again, this was just a ton of advice. I'm happy to take a few questions, Sean, and we'll get to whichever ones we can't answer right now on Tuesday.
Awesome. Yeah, we did have quite a few questions come in, and I wanted to tell everyone we'll definitely get them all answered. But I bet you we can probably do 3 or 4 tonight and save the rest
Cool.
for next Tuesday. So first
Let's do it.
question from Brandon. He said, I've got a question about teaching others your skill set, right? The fourth kind of way you can make this work. He said, at what point did you feel comfortable selling your skills as a teacher? And maybe how did you get to that point?
Good question. So I really wasn't fully comfortable with it until about a year or two ago. So it takes a while to be comfortable. You're probably never going to be comfortable right off the bat because it's just really different from anything you've probably done in your life. Like selling your expertise can be quite interesting at first. So it does take a while to get comfortable with it. But if you know you have the experience and you want to help others and you find yourself already helping others, then it's time to step out of the comfort zone and start that process.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know at Digital Marketer, when I started doing this teaching stuff, I just said, hey, I know a lot about this and I'm passionate. Can I just try it and we'll see how it goes? And the first two or three things I created sucked, but it
Yeah,
got better the more I did it. So part of it is just putting yourself out there and knowing that it'll take you a few reps to get to the point where you're really satisfied with it. But if you don't ever start, you will never be able to get to that point. So
totally.
awesome. Next question is from Jake, and he said, this might be one that we should take to Ezra, but I want to get your 2 cents on it first. But he was saying most of our deals are percentage of top line revenue. Do you have contract suggestions? So are there any things that you would think about or look out for when you're doing a equity or top line revenue share deal with a business from a contract
Yeah,
standpoint? And I
good
will say
question.
one thing jumps off the page to me. If you don't mind, I'll say this real quick just because we're off sync on audio, but you want to make sure that you're not going to miss out on getting your return when customers or clients are able to, sort of back out all of their additional costs from that revenue total. So make sure that the contract is set up in such a way that you're still going to get paid, even if they say, oh, well, because we were making so much extra money with the ads you were running, we decided we buy an extra year's worth of inventory. So we actually made no
Yeah.
revenue this year. Sorry, you don't get paid out.
Right. And John, on that note, that's why I always try to go to, top line revenue and not do a percentage of profit. The only person I would do a percentage of profit with or situation is something like Ezra and I. So if you're running the traffic, you're not controlling the cost of goods sold. So it doesn't make sense for you to be measured that way. So I would always try to go to top line. But when it comes to contracts, that's definitely not my realm. We can ask Ezra and also Jake inside of Team Traffic, which you guys are getting access to. There's a training in there with James Schramko, who's been my business mentor to help me through all of this. And we actually talk about contracts when it comes to these situations. So, and he's someone that's in the Team Traffic Facebook group that we can tag and ask questions of in regards to this too.
Awesome. And I guess you guys already had it covered with top line. See, I don't ever do these kind of deals usually. I tend to work more for project-based stuff, so I didn't know the terminology. But that's awesome. Okay, next question from Ari. How do you know when to start a new business versus growing what you have already? Interesting question.
Yeah, I think I would need a little bit more context. I mean, it really depends. It's hard to answer. I would say either when the thing that you have, like you've just tried until the point where it's like maybe there's no proof of concept here and I need to move on, or when you feel that that business is to some level of, I don't want to say automation, but where you can kind of take the focus off of that a little bit to start a new project.
Yeah, and I know in a later question, Ari had mentioned Ezra's wig business. And so before Ezra had Boom and Zipify and Smart Marketer, he sold wigs. And I get the impression from talking to Ezra about it that it wasn't something he was deeply passionate about. It was something that he was, trying to make a living from. And he's sort of where he cut his teeth on doing this stuff. And so an opportunity came and he sold the business for a profit. And then he kind of found the idea for doing Boom, right? Because he was already friends with Cindy Joseph, and he said, "Hey, what if we did this Age Pro Revolution skincare line where you're sort of the face of it?" So if you've got a successful business and you're wondering whether you should keep working on it or start a new one, asking yourself, do you think you could be doing this in 5 to 10 years? Like, are you going to be sick of
Yeah.
this and absolutely miserable if you stick with it? Uh, Going ahead and saying, maybe I should get this thing where it needs to be to sell it so I can go pursue something I'm more passionate about.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Another question, and I actually have four, and I think they'll be fairly quick. So do you want to try to run through all these? Well, we'll see how you're
Yes.
doing. But
Okay.
next one from Brandon is, do you ever get pushback on performance base or revenue share if it looks good? Like where you run into external factors hurting the performance.
Yeah, definitely. That's why those deals can be kind of stressful. Like, for example, all businesses have seasonality. So, or most do. So, if you're performance based and you're selling swimwear, but it's not in season right now, that's going to suck a little bit. I think that's what he's talking about. Or there are decisions that the business owner is making or the marketing team's making that's hindering your results. I mean, yes, that happens a lot. And that's why it's good to set boundaries there and have like very open communication about that and make sure that the deal is set up so that you're protected under those circumstances too. Or you just have to
Yeah, that
understand
makes a
about
lot of
that
sense.
that about the deal when you make it.
Yeah, I think that's, you just need to be very intentional about going in and doing these kind of deals because there are always challenges like that. It's sort of what I was saying about the more you define and set the scope and think about everything before you start working together, the better the relationship is. So, if you're going to work for a swimsuit company, there's going to be seasonality because there are not going to be many people buying swimsuits in December in the US. So you need to go into the contract saying like, we know this is going to be a dip, and so I'll do less work and you'll pay me less or something like that, rather than saying, oh shoot, I was talking to the William Painter guys and they were saying like selling sunglasses in the later part of the year is really hard, and so they were trying to fix that problem in their business. And part of that was they found new opportunities. So you can even go to the client and say, things aren't doing what you want. What if we, partner on adding new products to your overall lineup? And, maybe you take a bigger share of equity in that deal. So just really, really think carefully about how you structure it and plan for those challenges, whether that's a seasonality thing or anything along those lines.
Cool. John, we'll
Okay,
take one more
Brandon
if that's okay.
said, okay. Yeah, of course. I mean, you're I know it's super late there. So last question, Brandon said, how do you battle scope creep? What do you do when a client wants more, even though you've clearly defined what you're willing to do?
Mm, good question. What do you do, John?
Yeah, that is a good question. So this is why I started doing these contracts, and why I did a lot of work where I didn't get paid for it is I would just, go in and say like, oh, you've got a problem with your Shopify implementation. Like I can fix that because I fixed this for somebody else. And then they'd jump me to another project and another project. And I'd get to the end and I'd say, oh, shoot, I put a lot of time and energy into this, but I didn't get anything, you know, kind of ironed out where I was getting paid or where my time wasn't worth as much as it was supposed to be. So the new thing I do is anytime I start a new client consultant relationship, I make sure to put an SOW together. Even if they say, oh, we don't need that, I want it to be there for my sake. And then when they do something that I think goes outside of the line of that, I say, hey, that sounds like an awesome project. Let me put together another SOW. So anytime
Yeah.
somebody steps outside of the scope, I always have that documentation to point to. And that
Yeah.
was
And they know
that was
how
a
much
really
more
big
it's
game
going to
changer
be.
for me, where it stopped being stressful and started being fun. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They know
And
upfront. So if they
you
try to say,
position
oh,
it
I
as
thought this
extra
was part of this
cost.
project, it's not. Yeah,
Yeah, or you just
exactly.
say, "Hey, I'm sorry, that's not a part of the scope of work here, and I don't have the time or resources to do it." I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying no, but I think it's just having that boundary where it's like, you're either going to need to pay for this extra service or I can't provide this. But good question.
Yep.
Awesome,
Cool.
John. Well, this was
Okay.
super fun, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and um, there are just so many opportunities here.